I've worked the overnight shift at McDonald's for 3 years. It's not a glamorous job, but it's steady, quiet most nights. I like the silence. I like the way time feels different when the rest of the world is asleep. The only sounds are the low hum of the fryers, the ice machine clicking on in the corner, and the occasional hiss from the coffee brewer like it's sighing in its sleep. You get used to weirdos working that shift. Drunk college kids, strung-out tweakers, lonely people trying to hold a conversation over the counter just to feel like they exist. I've seen arguments break out over spilt milkshakes and people cry into their fries at 4 a.m. Nothing surprises me anymore. At least, that's what I thought. Until the man in the grey hoodie showed up. It was a Tuesday. 2:47 AIE. The store was dead silent. Tomas, the kitchen guy, had taken his break and was out back smoking. I was alone up front, leaning on the counter with my chin in my hand, watching the digital clock on the register crawl toward closing. The drive-thru was empty. The lot was empty. Even the main road was still. And then the door opened. I didn't hear the bell chime. I just felt the shift in air, the soft whoosh of the door swinging open. I looked up and saw him already inside, standing just a few feet from the counter. He was tall, wearing a grey hoodie with a drawstring pulled tight around his face, which was cast in shadow. I couldn't see his eyes, just the faint reflection of light off his glasses and the sharp white edge of his nose beneath the hood. I straightened up, cleared my throat. "Can I help you?" He didn't respond. He didn't even twitch. Just stood there, hands hanging stiffly at his sides. I waited a beat, then another. "Do you want to order something?" Slowly, deliberately, he raised his right hand and pointed up at the menu board behind me. His hand was pale, fingers long and too still. He didn't move it, just held it there. Index finger extended toward the Big Mac combo. "Okay," I said, tapping at the touchscreen. "One Big Mac combo, you want medium or large?" No answer, still just pointing. "Medium," I said to myself. "Got it." I entered the order. "That'll be $7.42. He lowered his hand and reached into the front pocket of his hoodie. What he pulled out was an old, cracked leather wallet, creased at the edges, the kind that looked like it had been folded the same way for 20 years. He handed me a $5 bill and a coupon. Thinking it was a coupon, laid out. It was soft, like paper that had been soaked and dried too many times. On it was the McDonald's logo, faded and slightly off, like a bad photocopy. Beneath the logo were the words, "One free order, redeem anytime." No barcode, no expiration date, no legal fine print, just those words centered on the page. I hesitated, looked up at him. He was still staring. I took the money and the slip, entered the order as paid. I wasn't about to argue with the guy at 3 a.m. over $2 and a fake coupon. The whole transaction felt slow. Not like time was moving differently, just like the normal rhythm of interaction had been suspended. "Should be ready in a couple minutes," I said. He didn't nod, didn't sit, didn't say a word. Just stood there. The hood was so tight, I still couldn't see his face. Only the faint white gleam of his glasses and a suggestion of skin. His head was slightly down, like he was looking at the cash register screen, but not reading it, just watching it flicker. I turned to the bagging station. As I assembled the order, I heard the fluorescent lights above flicker. One of them buzzed hard, harder than usual, then steadied. I turned around. Still there. Same place. Unmoving. I slid the fries into the bag, turned back to grab a drink cup, and that's when my headset crackled. I wasn't wearing it. It was lying on the counter beside me, but I heard it clear as anything, whisper right into my ear. "You know me." I froze. I stared at the headset like it had grown teeth. The voice had been low, male, familiar somehow, like someone I used to know but couldn't place. My scalp prickled. I turned around fast. The man was gone. No sound, no footsteps, no bell, just gone. The door hadn't opened. I would have heard it, seen it. He was standing right there and then he wasn't. But the food was still under the heat lamp, bag ready, drink filled. And on the counter, in the exact spot he'd been standing, was the coupon. Same one, only now in fresh, perfect handwriting it said, "Not yet." I walked straight to the back and rewound the security footage. I watched myself at the register, watched myself talk to no one, watched myself take an order, take money, bag food. There was no man on the screen. Not when the door opened, not standing at the counter, not leaving. The motion sensor hadn't even triggered. I asked Tomas if he saw anything. He just looked confused. "Dude, no one's been here all night, just us." I didn't say anything else, just sat in the back for the rest of the shift, headset turned off, eyes glued to the monitor. At 4:13 a.m. the drive-through speaker turned on by itself, just static. And through that static, for maybe 3 seconds, I heard the voice again. "I'm still hungry." He didn't come back the next night, or the night after that. But every morning, after the store closed and we cleaned up for the breakfast shift, I checked the counter. And every time I found a new coupon. Same texture, same faded ink. But the message has changed. Not this time. Try again. You forgot me. Receipt printed, order incomplete. Smells like home. He remembered. Last night's said, "See you soon." 2 days ago I was watching the camera feed. Everything looked normal. Then, for just one frame, barely a flicker, I saw movement in the PlayPlace. One of the tubes. Something bent over. Too tall for a child, too long in the limbs. Its hand pressed to the plastic window, looking out at the counter. Not moving. Just watching. Guys, I haven't quit. I don't know why. I think part of me wants to know who he is, what he is. Or maybe I already do. Maybe he used to come in years ago. Maybe I rang him up 100 times and never looked close enough. Maybe I gave him the wrong order once, or looked through him like everyone else does on night shift. Maybe he never left. For the quiet. For the right hour. For me. Now, every time the door opens, I flinch, just slightly. Every time a customer walks in with a hood pulled tight, I feel my stomach clench. One of these nights he'll be there again, pointing, smiling, still hungry. Most people think closing at McDonald's is boring. You sweep, you mop, you hose down the fryers, and you stack the chairs. If you're lucky, you get to sneak a few nuggets before they toss the leftovers into the waste bin. Sometimes there's music, sometimes there's small talk with your co-worker. It's slow, predictable, brain-dead stuff. A quiet descent toward 3 a.m. where you can hear every little click and buzz of the building settling into itself. I've worked dozens of those nights. I've wiped down soda nozzles in total silence. I've had full conversations with no one just to stay sane. It's boring, but it's safe, or at least it was, until the night the lights wouldn't turn off. It started normal, Sunday shift, just me and Tomas. He worked grill, high-handled front, slow night, dead night. Drive-through died out around 11:30 and we didn't have a single walk-in past midnight. At 12:45, Tomas clocked out early, said his stomach was acting up. I told him it was cool. I'd finished the checklist myself. I'd done it before. The moment the door closed behind him, the place got quiet in a way that didn't feel peaceful. It wasn't the usual hum of a sleeping building. It was hollow, like the space had expanded around me and everything was just slightly too far away. I shook it off, grabbed the mop and went to work. I had the music on low, some random lo-fi playlist on my phone just to fill the air, but even that felt distant, though like I was hearing it through a wall. I went through the routine, wiped down the counters, checked the restrooms, swept the lobby. Everything was fine until I got to the light switches. I moved to the front of the store and flipped the switch that turns off the dining room fluorescence. It clicked like normal, but nothing happened. The lights stayed on. I tried again. Off, on, off, on. Nothing. They didn't even flicker, just steady, bright, too bright light pouring across the tables and booths like they were glowing from within. I thought maybe the breaker had tripped or something weird happened with the wiring, so I went to the back, checked the panel, everything was normal. I stood there for a few seconds staring at the labeled switches. None of it made sense. Then I heard the ding, the soft, unmistakable sound of the front door opening. I froze. We were closed, lobby doors locked. No one was outside 5 minutes ago when I passed through the lobby. I moved slowly back toward the front, footsteps loud on the tile. As I turned the corner, I saw nothing. No customer, no open door. But one of the chairs I had stepped earlier, third table from the front, was back on the ground. Perfectly placed, aligned just right, like someone had set it gently, deliberately. My throat tightened. I walked over, picked it up and flipped it back onto the table, tried to laugh it off. Maybe I knocked it over earlier and didn't notice. Maybe Tomas didn't stack that one. Maybe anything. I was halfway back to the kitchen when I heard something else. A voice. Not loud, just low, like someone speaking softly from the far side of the soda fountain. Just 3 words. It's still open, right? I turned around so fast I nearly tripped. No one there. But there was a tray on the counter now. A red tray with a wrapper and a small fry carton. It hadn't been there a minute ago. The fry carton was upright. A few cold fries inside. The wrapper was greasy and folded. No receipt. No customer. I looked at the door, still locked. The keypad was dark. I turned back to the kitchen. That's when the headset clicked. I wasn't wearing it. It was sitting on the counter near the coffee machine, untouched, but I heard it beep, the distinctive tone of an incoming drive-through order. I stared at it, unmoving. A static crackled softly through the earpiece. Then, a voice, low, calm, almost polite. Can I place an order? I didn't touch the headset, didn't say a word. The voice asked again. Hello? I said, can I place an order? I grabbed the headset, turned it off and tossed it into the sink. I wasn't about to play along. The fry turned on. No oil, we'd emptied it already, but it hissed and bubbled like it was full, the surface of the metal shimmering with heat waves that didn't exist. I smelt fries. Hot, salty, fresh fries. I hadn't cooked anything in almost an hour. When I turned around, there was a customer, sitting in the corner booth nearest the PlayPlace windows. Head down, arms on the table. Still, the air went thick. I took a step back, then forward again, heart hammering. I crept closer, trying to see his face. He was wearing a Mcdonald's uniform. Not ours, not current. The shirt was older. Late 90s, early 2000s style. Logo faded, hat slightly tilted forward. His name tag was still clipped on. And that's when it clicked. There was a plaque in the back office, hung just beside the break schedule, in memory of Aaron K., 1979 to 2001. I never asked about it, figured it was an old employee who passed away, someone from way before my time. Aaron looked up and smiled. It wasn't a normal smile, not threatening, just tired. The lights overhead buzzed hard. Every bulb in the ceiling flickered in unison. The PlayPlace came alive. I hadn't noticed it before, but the lights in the tubes were on now. Bright white light, too harsh, casting long shadows through the mesh windows. The plastic glowed like veins under skin. Something moved inside one of the tubes. I turned, ran to the kitchen, and pulled the back door. It didn't open. The lock turned, but the door wouldn't budge. I tried the side exit. Nothing. Tried the front, the keypad was dead. I ended up in the office, door locked, staring at the old security monitor. Its screen flickered. For a brief second, Aaron was gone. Then he was standing in the kitchen, right where I had just been, watching the fryer hiss with invisible heat. The next thing I remember was Tomas shaking me awake. It was daylight, the morning shift had arrived, the doors were unlocked, everything normal. Except the tray was still on the counter, cold fries, folded wrapper, and in the break room, taped to the schedule board, was Aaron's name tag. No one claimed they put it there. No one remembered the plaque in the office. They said it had been taken down years ago, but I remember it. I still do. I don't close anymore. I requested morning shifts. Said I was getting paranoid being alone at night. No one argued, no one really cared. But every time I drive by the store after dark, I glance through the window, and sometimes, when the lights should be off, they're still on, just a little too bright. And every so often, in the phi booth, I see someone sitting there, not moving, just waiting. It started just after midnight. There were only 5 of us inside the McDonald's. I remember clearly because I glanced around the dining room before it all went wrong. It was late, but not empty. That strange, dead-hour energy settled over the place, the kind of stillness that exists only in 24-hour businesses at 12:30 IEM. A young couple sat in the corner booth. They weren't speaking, just staring at their phones across the table, blue light washing over their tired faces. A man in a wrinkled business suit was hunched over a cup of coffee, stirring it slowly like he forgot why he ordered it. A teenage boy stood at the self-serve kiosk, tapping through the menu with aggressive frustration as if the machine were trying to ruin his night on purpose. And me, early 30s, just passing through town after a long drive, trying to stay awake with a greasy double cheeseburger and cold Coke. Behind the counter was Elena. Her name-tag caught the light as she leaned on the register, half-lidded eyes and a posture that screamed, "I'm one complaint away from walking out." She looked exhausted, the kind of tired you wear like a second skin. I got the sense she'd been here all day, maybe longer. The restaurant was quiet, peaceful in a sterile, artificial kind of way. The hum of the fryers and soda machine filled the air, the occasional mechanical squeal of the ice cream machine trying and failing to come to life. In the corner, the PlayPlace sat dark and unused, its plastic tunnels lit only by the glow of the parking lot lamps filtering through the glass. Then the man in the trench coat walked in. He didn't speak, didn't glance at the counter, he didn't even look around to see who was watching. He just entered, walked straight to the front doors, and locked them behind him. The room seemed to inhale. Elena straightened. "Excuse me, sir. The doors are supposed to stay unlocked while we're open." He didn't answer. From beneath the folds of his coat, he pulled out a sawed-off shotgun. The air stopped moving. There was no scream, not yet. The fear hit us all at once, but our bodies hadn't caught up to our minds. The couple looked up in slow motion. The businessman dropped his spoon. The teenager backed away from the kiosk like it had shocked him. I felt my hands go cold around my cup. "Everyone," the man said, voice level and calm, "sit." We sat. He moved behind the counter, nodding at Elena. "You too." She looked at us, then at him, then slowly stepped away from the register and joined us in the booths. The man kept walking, covering the windows with sheets of aluminium foil pulled from inside his coat. It came out in perfect folds, like he'd practiced this before. After that, he shoved the metal trash bins up against the doors, bracing them. Then he turned to us. "Phones." We didn't argue. One by one, we placed them on a tray. He pushed toward us with his foot. He gathered them, walked to the fryer, and without a word, dumped the tray into the hot oil. The sizzle was immediate and violent. The smell of burning plastic filled the air, acrid and chemical. That's when we realized this wasn't a robbery. "What do you want?" Elena asked, voice cracking. He didn't answer immediately. He walked the length of the dining room slowly, the shotgun held loose but steady at his side. "I want witnesses," he said finally. I want someone to see what happens next. We sat there for a long time, minutes passed in silence, broken only by the friar still spitting out the last bits of ruined plastic. The man didn't move much. He leaned against the counter and watched us. No demands, no speeches, just waiting. Eventually, he spoke again. I worked here once, long time ago, summer job, midnight shifts, cleaning toilets, restocking saucers, chasing rats out of the dumpster. Drove me insane, but I always felt like something was watching me, like the building had eyes. He looked up at the ceiling, at the plastic vents. You know, places like this, they soak things in. Every fight, every tantrum, every breakdown, every time someone cried in the bathroom or screamed into a headset. All that noise, all that emotion, it builds up, stays in the walls. No one responded. We barely breathed. He glanced at his watch. It's almost time. The PlayPlace lights flickered on. We all turned toward it. The sudden glow cast long shadows across the booths. A low hum filled the room. Not mechanical, not electrical, something else. Inside the tubes, something moved. At first we thought it was a trick of the light, but then we saw it more clearly. Shapes shifting through the colored plastic tunnels. Too big for kids, too long. Pale limbs dragging along the curved surfaces. No sound, no footsteps, just gliding movement and the occasional soft tap of fingers against the window. The businessman stood up. What is that? What the hell is that? The man with the shotgun smiled. They live here, they always have. We just forgot. The lights flickered harder. One bulb exploded overhead. The shapes grew closer to the glass. I saw a face, or something pretending to be a face, pressing against the window of the spiral tube. No eyes, just indentations. Like something stretching beneath plastic skin. Then everything went black. Pitch darkness, total silence. Someone screamed. A crash. Then red emergency lights blinked on. The PlayPlace was empty. The man in the trench coat was gone, and the front doors were wide open. No foil, no trash cans, no smell of smoke. Our phones were gone, but the fryer was clean, as if nothing had been in it at all. We left without speaking, drove away. Some of us called the police, some didn't bother. There were no reports, no footage, nothing in the news. Elena quit, the teenager never came back, the couple stopped answering texts from the rest of us. I've driven past that Mcdonald's dozens of times since. And every time when it's after midnight, the PlayPlace is glowing, like something inside is awake and waiting. Greg hadn't planned on working at McDonald's at 42, but then again, Greg hadn't planned on a lot of things. He hadn't planned on his wife leaving him, taking the dog and most of their savings. He hadn't planned on losing his job at the parts factory when it shut down overnight. And he certainly hadn't planned on trading bourbon for sleep, or on living in a one-bedroom apartment with water-stained ceilings and a leaky fridge that hummed like it was dying in its sleep. McDonald's was supposed to be temporary, just something to fill the gap, but 2 years later, Greg was still here, night shift supervisor at the 24-hour location off I-84. Everyone else called it the zombie shift. Greg just called it familiar. The regulars knew him, truckers, cops, the occasional college kid with the shakes. They liked Greg because he was quiet, didn't push conversation, didn't judge. And Greg liked them because they didn't ask about his past. They didn't know about the AA chips gathering dust in his glove box. They didn't know he sometimes stayed an hour past shift just to delay going home. That night started like any other. Rain tapped against the windows in soft fingers. Greg stood at the register, watching the ice machines cycle. His trainee, Malik, was in the back, taking his 4th bathroom break of the hour. It didn't matter. The store was dead. And then the lights flickered. Greg looked up. The fluorescents buzzed, dimmed, then steadied. It happened sometimes. Wiring in this building was as old as the friars. But then it happened again, longer this time. The 3rd time, the lights didn't come back. Emergency lights kicked on, casting the lobby in dull red glow. Greg reached under the counter for the flashlight they kept next to the receipt paper. He clicked it on, made his way around the register. Malik, you good back there? No answer. Greg moved to the back hallway. The bathroom door was ajar, lights still on inside, but it was empty. The kitchen was dark, fryers silent, ovens off. Greg swept the flashlight around. Nothing. Then something shifted in the PlayPlace. A soft thud, like a footfall. Greg walked back out, hesitated, then aimed the flashlight at the PlayPlace entrance. The ball pit was empty. The tubes were still, but the feeling that someone was watching him pressed in, heavy as the smell of old grease. He moved closer. The light picked up something on the plastic, a handprint, small, but smeared, like someone had pressed it there in panic. Malik. Another third, this time above him. Greg tilted the flashlight up. Through the foggy window of the topmost tube, he saw movement, a shape too long for a kid, bent at strange angles, crawling slowly. He stepped back. The lights flickered again. For a second the shape vanished, then it appeared at the bottom of the slide. It wasn't Malik. It wasn't anyone. Greg froze. The thing didn't move, it just sat at the base of the slide, staring. It had no face, not one Greg could see, just a smooth, slightly sunken surface where features should be. But Greg felt it looking at him. Then it spoke, not out loud in his head. You don't want to go home. Greg staggered back, his flashlight dropped. The lights spun and landed on the ceiling, casting wild shadows. You belong here. He turned and ran, not out the front door. He didn't even think to try. He ran to the kitchen, through the dry storage into the freezer. He pressed his back against the cold wall, breathing hard. The voice was still there, soft, curling like smoke. This is where people forget, this is where time stops. He screamed, loud, wordless, slammed his fists against the freezer wall, then silence. When he opened his eyes, it was morning. Bright sunlight poured through the windows. Malik was clocking in, earbuds in. The fryer hissed like nothing had happened. Greg stood alone in the kitchen. His flashlight was back in its place. No power outage was reported. No one had seen anything. But on the PlayPlace window, that handprint remained. And Greg's keys were missing. He never found them. He never found Malik again either. 2 days later, Greg came back on shift. He didn't speak. He just stared at the PlayPlace and smiled.